Well, good morning. It's nice to know I'm being properly timed. It's my great honor to address this group of Americans today. And I'm happy to see many of my fellow Americans from Texas here. In Louisiana, we refer to Texas as West Louisiana. And, of course, this refers to our combined effort as a citizenry to drive the economy of our nation through fossil fuel production. This is a shared culture and mission of the Gulf states, especially Louisiana and Texas, in that order. Yeah, I don't want to push the wrong button there, brother. So, fossil fuel is becoming green, is it not? And if we reflect upon the history of mankind, it's very uplifting to see that it's not by government mandate. It's not driven by a forced exploration or industrial endeavor. The evolution of mankind's consumption of energy and the cleanliness thereof is reflective of private industry investment. Our exploration for and extraction of fossil fuels through the history of mankind has been driven by the intellect of mankind. And industry has, of course, evolved over the generations. And where we are right now, we're talking about the prosperity of the world and how that is impacted by fossil fuel and fossil fuel technology and extraction and the future of fossil fuels. We have apparently, you know, every time you turn around, there's a newly discovered source of fossil fuels. And it seems that the Lord has provided us with quite a lot, has He not? And our extraction and utilization of this energy is becoming increasingly clean. I sit on the Science-Based Technology Committee. We have oversight. We had a fascinating hearing just a few weeks ago in D.C. Regarding emerging fossil fuel technologies, and it was very enlightening speaking with these scientists and engineers, some of the brightest minds from across the world that are involved in fossil fuel extraction and utilization. And it became very clear that fossil fuel is becoming rather green. And this, again, this is because the intellect of the mankind is the driving force behind industrial success. And this is what America is all about in leading this thing. Now, our previous administration, and I say this respectfully because I'll always respect the office of the presidency, but our previous administration had weaponized the federal government against the fossil fuel industry. The expansive, what I refer to as the alphabet branch of government, all the departments and agencies therein, were quite effectively used to suppress fossil fuel production and extraction. And we're still dealing with some of the residual effects of that right now. Although we've done a tremendous amount at the federal level to remove regulatory burden from the oil and gas industry and to encourage economic growth through fossil fuel production, we've eliminated, for instance, 22 burdensome regulations from previous administrations, mostly from the Obama administration, for every one new Trump regulation. That's 22 to 1. This, yes, ma'am. This has been quite an endeavor, but we're very focused on it. And it's been a win, man, for America. And let me say that a win for America is a win for the world. There's no more generous nor compassionate nation than the United States of America. Our nation was anointed at birth by a loving and forgiving Savior. The founding fathers were spoken to in their very heart and soul as they created the nation that we love and serve. My father used to say, the ocean floats all boats. And the ocean of the world, economically, is the American economic engine. And what drives that engine? Fossil fuel. Now, we were given stewardship over the world and the creatures therein by our Creator long ago. This means to nurture and to care for. So from our very essence, from the principles that drive us, we of course are encouraged to care for our planet. All of us do. And as I speak across the state and the country, and Americans ask me after an address that, what does this mean? Shall I become supportive of the conservative agenda? Shall I vote Republican? I say, you're damn right you should vote Republican. Because we care. I have a very clear understanding, just as a humble man, a regular American man, that the responsibility that we bear as American citizens is tremendous. The history that has brought us to where we are has endowed upon us a great burden, but it's a very uplifting burden to be an American citizen involved in delivering prosperity and freedom to the world, as this particular panel is discussing. And to me, just as a humble man, it's quite clear that the future of fossil fuel production is the key economic driver for the American economic engine, and therefore it's the key driver for prosperity around the world. This is not a difficult conclusion to arrive at. And as we overcome the burdens and restrictions, the obstructions of the previous regime, as we consider the advances that we've made under President Trump's helmsmanship, that we have a president that truly loves America and does not care what people think. He intends to fix America whether anybody likes it or not. And he's a very loving and compassionate man. If you've spent any time with him, you'll know, you look into the man's heart and soul, and it's very clear. He's a loving and compassionate leader of men. And this is the kind of courage that we have in the White House right now. My office, congressionally, is considered one of the most conservative offices in Washington, D.C. We've supported every conceivable measure to breathe life back into an industry that has been injured by a decade of obstructionist regulation and executive decree. We've created an environment, and we continue to do so, where energy production, exploration, extraction, utilization is encouraged. So what can we do? What can we do more of? We can do more of what we've been doing. This thing is not over. We're dealing with a massive bureaucracy, and the deep state is real. We have obstructionist men and women that are drawing a paycheck right now from us, that work within the alphabet branch, and they have every intention of resisting this movement of economic rebirth for the American citizenry that we serve, and they're certainly anti-fossil fuel. Now, I believe, as I've stated clearly, that fossil fuel's future includes a very green trend. The gentleman referred to climate change, and climate has been changing, you know, since Christ was a choir boy. It certainly predates the use of fossil fuel. So I understand clearly, as do you, ladies and gentlemen, that the prosperity of the world depends upon the continued and expansive use of fossil fuels, and we're getting cleaner and cleaner every day, more efficient, safer, because it's good business. And it's reflective somehow of our deepest spirit as children of God, as American citizens, from whatever our culture or background or heritage or ethnicity, despite our particular family's history, we're driven from deep within to care for our fellow man and our planet. Now, in this room, we know that this depends upon fossil fuel. And elected officials like me, we have a responsibility to get the federal government the hell out of our way so that we can do business and continue to expand fossil fuel production. And that's exactly what my office intends to do by listening very carefully and very prayerfully to men and women like you at conferences like this and bringing this spirit to Washington, D.C. and driving it forward. Now, we must recognize, however, that somewhere in America, or perhaps another nation state, there's a conference similar to this one, but quite different. They're discussing the future of the world's energy will be provided by rainbow dust and unicorn milk. And perhaps one day this shall be true. But in the really real world, we need natural gas, we need LNG, we need crude, we need to drill offshore, we need to drill onshore. It needs to be driven by the American economic engine, which is driven by American fossil fuel production. This is very clear. I say this as a compassionate, driven American citizen and child of God. There's not one of us here would not give our life for a stranger if the situation presented itself and we were driven by our spirit to do so. We're good and loving people. We have a responsibility to consider the prosperity of the world and how it's directly connected to the production of fossil fuels. A gentleman earlier, as I entered the room, asked, what's perhaps the one thing that we could do primarily to help the production of fossil fuel in America? And listen, we've done virtually everything we can at the federal level except one thing: royalty relief. Royalty relief. The executive has the authority. 1 year ago this month, 1 year, peace to you too, brother. Oh, he's in 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Peace out, man. I thought a rainbow god got in here. We love all Americans. Peace out. So 1 year ago, my office authored a letter to the executive and the associated employees therein, encouraging that they use their authority to provide royalty relief for offshore leases and drilling. This would make it much more economically viable and attractive for exploration and extraction. So we're still in that fight, man. We haven't got an answer. You know what I got? Thank you for sending a letter. We're considering that. So we've offered, of course, we've been in constant back channel communication. We're authoring another letter as we speak. Yeah, America's #1, baby. Love this guy. So we're pushing it at the federal level. In Louisiana, I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but we have other challenges in Louisiana. Louisiana, although we've created quite an attractive environment across the nation regarding fossil fuel production, Louisiana remains a challenging environment. I'll be happy to address this in particular questions. I thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. God bless you one and all, and I'm happy to answer questions.